So, last presentation of the afternoon. Sean LaFontaine. Sean has 18 years experience at a senior management level for Kernow and 25 years in the environmental health profession and local government. He's extremely competent in environmental and public health practitioner and is a key driver of policy and procedural development. Come on up. Please welcome Paul. No, Sean, sorry.
Thanks very much. Don't know if I'm lucky last or not, but thanks for your patience and sticking around for the final presentation. When presenting this, I always find it important to let people know that I'm not a salesperson, I'm not an IT person. I'm a regulatory-based officer. I've been in local government 25 years, so effectively, even though environmental health-based, I am like you guys in terms of the challenges that local government throw up and the people within local government. So what I'm here to talk about is, and Peter did mention it earlier in his presentation before about technology that Dandenong use. RIAMS is, I guess, a new form of technology of providing information and knowledge management to support regulatory-based officers with their role. So it facilitates the use of mobility in providing access to all forms of information for officers that are field-based to support them with their role, but more importantly to provide them with confidence with regards to all aspects of their role that they're carrying out whilst in the field. The background to where this came from, it's actually originally from UK. It's been in the UK for 7 years now. There's over 300 authorities, local authorities in the UK that use this technology. And the background to it and where it came from was interesting because it's related to animal management specifically. There was a case in Wales where there was a complaint from a resident to the Ombudsman about the conduct of an officer in dealing with a dog barking complaint. The Ombudsman investigated, as they do, and basically in discussing with the officer how they approached and dealt with the issue regarding the dog complaint, found that the officer acted reasonably and appropriately in regards to how they went about investigating and dealing with that complaint. But interestingly, the Ombudsman actually found against the council. And the reason that the Ombudsman found against the council was because the council had no procedure. So there was actually no guidance in place for the officers to operate under in regards to carrying out their role. So what the council actually did was that they engaged Robert Halford, who was an environmental health officer originally, became a consultant. He has expertise in policy development. They engaged Robert to come in and help them and develop a procedure. What Robert asked the council was, is it okay if I speak to surrounding councils about what they do, what they have in place? What he found was the surrounding councils didn't have procedures either, but even more than that, what he found was in dealing with a dog barking complaint, which sits under the one legislative framework, every single council went about dealing with a dog complaint completely differently. There was no consistency at all. So essentially therein lies where RIAMS came as a basis, because he wrote a procedure. All 6 councils said, yep, we'd like you to write a procedure for us. And he was then thinking, well, how do I actually put it in a way that they can all access it? It becomes a live document. Whenever it's updated through government change or legislative change, it gets updated. Everybody in those 6 councils that's operating can instantly get access to the up-to-date version of the procedure to operate under from here on. So that's where essentially RIAMS form the basis. Essentially what that we know, it's one of a kind. I understand in Queensland there's toolbox, but in terms of the full raft of functionality of what this does, we're unaware of it being in existence or any technology anywhere in the world. It's scalable, so what that means is that it can be regional based. We all work under different legislative frameworks. At the moment, RIAMS in Australia is up and going in New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. So we have over 70 local authorities in those 3 states that are using it, and it can be set up so that a local laws officer or ranger or environmental health officer in New South Wales, when they get a log into the system, they get a log into the New South Wales region. So they see all the procedures and all the information that's specific to New South Wales or their state. It supports regulatory professionals through practical challenges and financial squeeze. Like I said, we're moving into the age of technology where mobility is where we're all moving to. So it makes sense for officers to have access to everything that they need information-based, procedures, state national policy, legislation, form templates, everything remotely so that they can access and do their job in the field. So what that leads to, the financial squeeze, we're all under budget pressures. The state of Victoria is now facing rate capping from next year onwards, where rates can only go up at CPI, which at the moment is about 2%. Previously, over the last 10 years, it's been going up on average 7 or 8%. So effectively, there's going to be challenges on budget squeeze within councils. So what this does is it facilitates increased productivity and efficiencies of the officer time. And Dandenong and Peter sort of outlined that before about their offices are set up where they don't need to come into the office at all. They can get access to everything they need whilst they're in the field, so therefore they become more productive. They can get through more work. So as I said, RIAMS is a knowledge management system. We all one of the challenges that we've had in local government, and it's universal, is that we all seem to work in silos. Everybody out there has a breadth of varying types of knowledge and understanding about the aspects of their role. But the problem is there's no way to really facilitate that knowledge and learning being shared to benefit everybody within the sector, whether it be local laws, environmental health, planning, building. What this system does is it facilitates the capture of knowledge and learnings and information, and basically enables the sharing of that information to benefit everybody, wherever they might be across the state. It enables professionals to do their job with up-to-date information. Essentially, what drives it is we have behind it all, in terms of what's provided in the system, we have a team of specialist authors that manage the content specifically to particular areas. So in Victoria, Peter Shelton and his local laws team in Dandenong, they're the ones that take care of all the local laws content, animal management, parking, the whole lot. They're the ones that manage the content that's available on the system to be shared and accessed by all local laws officers across the whole state of Victoria. If there's a particular need for information specific to local laws, whether it be animal management, the request will come to us requesting that information. We'll provide that to Peter and his local laws team. They'll develop a procedure or a protocol or document to be loaded onto the system in response to that request. Not only that person or that council gets the benefit from it, every single user of the system gets to access that information. So that's where the knowledge management comes in, and that's why it's important that with the setup we have specialist content experts that manage what's on the system itself. It's a standalone system. So you think, oh yeah, technology, you've got to involve IT, you've got to integrate with a corporate system. There's no integration requirements. It's a completely standalone system. The only system requirement is web browser, internet. That's the only requirement. Anybody who has internet, whether it be smartphones, tablets, whatever it might be, can access and use the system. Completely removes IT completely out of the equation. Essentially, it's a subscription service. There's no integration or no other support required from council or individual councils. At the moment, in Victoria, that's specifically what areas it covers. And you'll see animal management. In terms of animal management, they're all of the areas that we have covered in terms of procedures and template forms and state national policies, information. All information related to those key areas is available in the system itself. Basically, it covers everything. So as I've alluded to before, I'll go into the next one. I know that I'm limited to time, so I'll flick through some of these slides that aren't really relevant. But I'll detail a bit more about what's included in it and how you can utilise the information and customise and change it and adapt it to suit your own localised needs. The problem in Australia, and why we were keen to introduce it into Australia, was an issue around consistency and going around to different states, speaking to different local councils. There seems to be a lot of noise about consistency being an issue, particularly in the regulatory field. There's been some state-based inquiries around consistency in the regulatory area. There was a VCEC inquiry in Victoria, and that was centred around food regulation, and you've got IPAR in New South Wales. And a lot of the outcomes of those investigations are really damning on the regulatory sector within local government around inconsistency in approach. So there is a certain demand in the sector for the regulatory officers and councils to get better at being more consistent in how they carry out their responsibilities, because the legislation's the same. The issue is around the interpretation and how that's actually carried out by individual officers out in the field. The other aspects that came out of the VCEC report particularly was there was a lack of information sharing and a lack of networking. So we weren't talking together, we weren't working for each other. We were working in our own little patch and only focused on that. And we weren't really working towards outcomes that benefit everybody across the whole sector. So it goes into interpretation of legislation. What we found around a lot of councils is that the writing and maintaining of procedures and protocols is low on the agenda. Officers are flat out managing day-to-day stuff. So they can't really, and particularly small rural councils can't and don't have the time to maintain their own procedures, which, going back to what I said at the outset about the Ombudsman inquiry where it found against the council, that's a risk to council. The fact that officers are acting differently in terms of dealing with specific legislative requirements is a risk to council. So it's something that needs to be thought about, because we're becoming, and particularly in regulatory area itself, there's always a lot of focus on regulatory officers. There's a lot of publicity about it. We're always in the focus. So there's more and more accountability and focus being put on us about the decision-making processes that we go through in regards to carrying out actions, in regards to all aspects of what we do. And again, like I said, I've covered the variance in capacity of local government with what I just said before in terms of being able to maintain up-to-date procedures and information for their staff to follow. It's challenging. The documents are local and relevant. I've covered that. It's really low cost. So what we're talking about subscription is between $3,000 to about $5,500. That's it, to subscribe for a council to RIAMS. So when you talk about software and everything that goes into it and what it can do, it's a pretty small cost, and I'll go through some of the benefits a bit later on. Everything is fully customisable. So whilst we put on here standardised procedures, standardised templates, standardised forms, everything that's on there can be changed and adapted to suit your own localised needs. We talk about consistency. There's never going to be 100% consistency across the board and across states about how we do. There's always going to be localised approaches about how there might be a preference about doing particular things. Everything that's in here is not hard and fast, it's not stuck. You can adapt it to suit your own localised needs, and it won't change what an adjoining council or everybody else across the state will see. It will only change what's on your client account or your account into the system itself. There is the ability for document sharing. So if you have a particular document that you want to show, a lot of councils operate in regional basis and work together in regional basis. There's a capacity where, for example, if Townsville City Council have a policy that they're working on that they want to share with other councils in the region, they can, through the system, share that specifically and select which councils they wish to share that document. So it facilitates information sharing to occur as well, which leads back to what I was saying before about one of the issues that came up about in the VCEC report was around information sharing and a lack of it. So the system has the capability of facilitating that. It has the ability for you to incorporate your own information into the system as well, so you can bring into it whatever you like. Essentially, it becomes a one-stop shop. You can have it where every piece of information that your officers need to access with their role can all be available, whether it be localised, standardised, industry-based. It can be all set up to be available through this system. So it includes all of these procedures, state national policy guidance, letters, forms, public information, legal template notices, letter templates that all come up on the system, word-based, and effectively it doesn't get saved back into it. So if there's any particular information that's entered into a template document that's used from the system, because it comes out of the cloud, populates into your device, it follows whatever document management control is set up on your system. So if you've got TRIM as your document management system, it'll bring up the TRIM icon and say, where do you want to save it? So it doesn't impact on the system itself, and the system itself doesn't impact on your own internal corporate systems. That's why I say it's a standalone system. We also have on RIAMS forums, so there's ability for officers to communicate to each other. So if you've got a more regional or isolated council with one officer, comes across something they don't know what to do, they can use the forum technology that we have, pose a question. Our content experts are monitoring it, might respond. It could be someone from another council in another region that might see it, have an answer for them of what they might be able to do. And we also have facility for online training, so we can host training programs through the RIAMS platform as well. So that's what the homepage of RIAMS looks like. You can see in the bottom left corner, there's a local laws module in the knowledge areas with all of the modules that are listed there. Within animal management, I identified what areas are covered by in the animal management module specifically. They're all of the sub-modules that you can see there. And then I've just clicked on restricted breed, dangerous, menacing dogs to show you what list of procedures we have available in that module. So basically all you then do is you click on, if you want to have a look at the procedure for control of a dangerous dog, you basically click on the button up there where it's on the title of the document, and it draws out the procedure for you, and the officer can read the procedure. Within the procedure itself, it has linkages to legislation. If there's specific references to section of legislation that's detailed in the procedure, there's a hyperlink on that wording of the section. You click on that, it'll take you straight to the section of the legislation. So again, it's driving efficiency and productivity, but also providing confidence for the officer in the field, because they can access all of this on their devices whilst they're in the field carrying out their job. So these are some case studies in terms of savings, because you say, okay, $3,000 or $5,000 in my budget, that's just another cost. The manager looks at his budget, no, I can't afford it. Effectively, it goes back to before. It is important for councils to have procedures and up-to-date procedures in place, because it mitigates their risk of, if an officer makes a particular call and is challenged on that, the procedure is a support mechanism for the officer and the council itself. So some councils have individually engaged consultants because they don't have the time themselves to write procedures, and some of them are getting charged up to $50,000 to have complete procedure manual written, which is outrageous. And then basically within 3 months, if there's a change to a state policy or change to legislation, all of those procedures are outdated. So they have to come back, get the consultant back in to rewrite their procedures, which is another additional cost. For example, in Victoria, well, in Australia, there was national immunisation guidelines. Effectively, our content experts went in to our immunisation content area, rewrote all the procedures to take into account the new guidelines that came in place. Basically, when we factor in the time that our officers spent, or our content experts spent to rewrite it, it would have cost the council, $8,000 to bring in a consultant just to change it. Well, there's a saving for your subscription straight away. And we did all of that work within 2 weeks. Just go through, again, this is an example where a council was audited, basically found that they didn't have procedures in place. They then spent $50,000 on a consultant to come in and write them all for it so that they could cover off the auditor's recommendations. And this is where the support mechanism comes in place. West Wimmera Council's a very small council out in Western Victoria. Basically, it's difficult for them to get staff, so they employ essentially, or have in place, a junior EHO, very limited experience, but they're on their own. So what support mechanisms are in place? The manager, it's not environmental health background. There is nobody else out there in the council that has an environmental health background. They're it. So what support mechanisms are in place to support that person and provide them the confidence with dealing with all aspects of environmental health? Well, they purchased RIAMS straight away, and since then, the officer has been flying, has been absolutely, the feedback from her has been significant in terms of what benefit it's provided to her. More specific benefits that are provided, I referred to Wales before. Effectively, by introducing RIAMS, there's the actual dollar figures of what benefit they've found by utilising RIAMS across their whole regulatory area, but also further to that, they found that it resulted in 37% improvement in the response times to complaints or regulatory-based matters. They also found that there was a 90% improvement in consistency in terms of how specific aspects of their regulatory requirements were carried out by their officers. They found that the officers fed back that there was a 50% improvement in confidence. So because they had access to the information whilst they're in the field, whilst they're doing their activity, they felt that they had 50% greater confidence in what they were doing because they could access the information that they needed. And like I said before, it's now used by all Welsh-based local authorities. So assessing the value of RIAMS, our council's able to take staff offline to develop, maintain, manage content. Why are we, I don't know, I'm not sure how many councils there are in Queensland. I know there's 79 in Victoria. What's the point of having 79 officers in 79 councils all writing procedures about the same legislative requirement? Why not have it so that it's set up so that you have a content-based expert who's managing that on behalf of councils, and then councils then can adapt it to their own localised needs. The other aspect of RIAMS that really is a benefit is what we're finding in Victoria, it's starting to mature. We're getting fed information from officers who are using the system saying, hey, look, you haven't got information on this. This is what I just dealt with. This is something a bit different. You might want to have this provided on the system so that everybody across Victoria can benefit from what I learnt about the specific issue that I dealt with. So it goes onto the system, everybody gets the benefit from it. So everybody's now feeding information through the system to benefit everybody across the state in that specific sector. I guess the question is, what support tools are provided to regulatory professionals in the field? I mean, we're starting to move into mobility, but is the information available to benefit the officers? You've got your database system, your request management systems, your document management systems, but what access to procedures and other important information is available for officers to access so they have confidence in what they're doing? So essentially our acronym is content as a product, RIAMS is a service, but it's certainly in 2 years, like I said, we've got over 70 local authorities. We are looking to move into other states across Australia, but for us it's managed growth. The state government of Tasmania just purchased it at the start of this year, and we rolled out to the whole state of Tasmania. So they've basically purchased it, given it to all the councils across the whole of Tasmania. So they rolled out on the 1st of September. So there are state agencies who get it. There are state agencies who support the local government sector. The Local Government of Association of Tasmania are also on board with it. Interestingly, with the model of Tasmania is that we all have all state-based agencies, so it's not just, and I'm talking specifically about environmental health, it's not just the Department of Health that's engaged and basically participating in information sharing through the platform. We've got the EPA, DPI, LGAT, and also the Professional Association, EHA, are all supporting local government sector, so they're all feeding information in to support regulatory-based officers on the ground with their role to make their job a lot easier. So for me, that's a snapshot of it. Some of you guys have come up to speak to me. I'll leave my cards on the table if you've all got a, I'm sure you all want a beer now. I've had enough for the day, or had enough for the conference, so I'll leave my cards on the table. I'm happy to do a practical demonstration with you. Don't have to do it in person. If you want to give me a call, I'm happy to give you a trial login. And then if you want to set up a time, I can do a conference call with you and take you through and actually show you what's in the system and go through into more detail about how it works. So more than happy to do that for you at any time. So I'll finish my presentation there, and I'm happy to, I've got 4 minutes left. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.